Sure. I think it'd be an honor in a way to have your show be considered, some sort of punishment, where people are like sentenced to listen to the show. All right, so that happened. Gang of Four is here. Let's kick off the weekend. Let's get started. There is so much to talk about. On our gang today, he's a judge on the Texas 4th Court of Appeals, a former Bexar County DA, always the best dressed man in the room. Any room. Steve Hilbig.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you back. What's new in your world?
Oh, just working hard, trying to get opinions out.
Me too.
Yeah. But your opinions matter. I've been told my opinions don't matter,
No, at least some of yours don't get appealed. All right, Steve Hilbig is here. Jim Eskin publishes the Stratagems newsletter. And what is Stratagems for people that don't know, Jim?
Stratagems is a monthly e-newsletter. It addresses philanthropy, public affairs, and issues related to image, and available at stratagems.org.
All right. And you do a lot of research on that. It's very
yeah. Well, I want you
really
to think. I want you to think that I do a lot of research.
Oh, wait, Jim, can we fix Jim's mic? Jim's mic needs Cialis.
Okay. See now,
he's got that one microphone.
Now remember, I knew this was going to happen for the first time in more years than I want to admit. I'm not in my spot.
We made you
so I'm fighting with one arm behind my back.
For middle-aged men, that's a big deal. Sitting in a different chair. Let me tell you. All right. Well, Jim, it's good to have you here.
Yes, good to be here.
Rounding out the gang is our old KTSA News alum. He was just a newsboy when he worked here. JT Street is now
extra. Read all about.
He really was a reporter for KABB, Fox San Antonio, and he has the very popular feature Street's Corner.
I do,
which is unique. There's nothing else like it.
Thank you.
And you have a lot of fun with that.
I do. It's been a blast, and I just don't know how you got Jim in that bathtub.
Really? The Cialis bathtub. You'd have to see that.
Oh, man.
Jim's not a TV viewer.
Crickets.
Right.
I got it.
Hey, Jay, too much information.
I like
man,
it.
thank you.
Thank you for that. We shared that. That was a private moment we shared, JT. When 150,000 people.
Our private bathtub.
What is the next Streets Corner segment going to be about?
Geez. You know what?
It's going to be about Jesus.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure exactly what it's going to be. All month long, though, since I get this.
Do you hate it when people ask you this? Because I hate it.
No, I don't.
What
because
are you talking about on the radio tomorrow? And I really often I can't.
No, because hopefully between now and the time I roll into work at 1, somebody will throw me a good idea, so I'll know what I'm doing. No, I like that, and also since I get this free plug time all October, every Monday, we're doing Trick or Street. It's a little mini segment.
Trick or Street.
Yes, where we go out to a different haunted house every weekend, and we get to show people sort of the guts, if you will, of San Antonio's haunted houses. So that's been a lot of fun. We'll be doing that. 13th floor is this weekend, so you'll see that on Monday.
They are saying, JT, that the death of Steve Jobs set social networking records. That there was something like, at the height of the news being spread, there were 22,000 tweets a minute or some incredible number like that, that major news websites and aggregators of news were going down or slowing down. And that kind of, in a way, is a weird, unplanned tribute to Steve Jobs himself, right?
I think my favorite tribute to Steve Jobs was when the Westboro Baptist Church was setting up their protest of his funeral using their iPhones.
They tweeted it on their iPhone, yeah.
How
perfect is that?
That was wonderful. I think that's just the last laugh of Steve Jobs.
It really is. It really is. Did you? How do you sort of? You're kind of the new media guy in the room. How do you put this in perspective?
Well,
is he
I
like the
droid,
Henry Ford of his
so,
generation, or what is it?
I think I saw a quote on Facebook because my girlfriend posted it there, and she was talking about it was a Steve Jobs quote, and it's like, eventually we're going to be able to link computers together and communicate through this network of computers. And this was Steve Jobs in 1985.
And just to let Jim Eskin know, that's now happening, Jim. So.
I think that is a great quote to show just how visionary he was.
He didn't invent stuff as much as he put pieces together. Is that safe to say?
It's cliche, but you talk about the ultimate test. What difference can one person make? Look at the difference that this person, what a story. What a wonderfully powerful American entrepreneur story. He started this in his parents' garage. You're right, visionary, exactly. And look how much he changed their lives. For the most part, you can say for the better. He made a lot of money and had a good time doing it. I think it's just, and it's a tragic, and look how much he did by age 56, but it is a wonderfully American story. Again, he did good things, had fun, made a lot of money. They don't have to, they go hand in hand.
You know, Steve, there's a new book out by the former governor of Michigan, Jennifer Granholm, where she says that new technologies can only get off the ground with government subsidies and government help. And of course, recently we've seen the whole scandal with Solyndra and those, crony loans to this failed solar company. But isn't the Steve Jobs story sort of the antithesis of that? Isn't this the classic case of somebody who did, in fact, raise the capital, take the chances? I mean, this is sort of like, how did he do it without the government?
Yeah, and I think when somebody was talking earlier today, I heard him say that to them it was more important that he had his failures. I mean, everybody always celebrates the successes, but through the failures, that's how he managed his success. And so that teaches me two lessons. One is that we always seem to think that it's a bad thing when people fail. No, it isn't. But as you point out, number two, I think government gets in the way too often, and I think the marketplace says it all. You build a better mousetrap, people will come, and that's what exactly
government
what he
built
did.
a lot of infrastructure. I mean, government built the interstates. Government built the traditional hardline phone networks. Government protected the old monopolies of Bell and so forth. But there's a lot of new tech that has essentially led the way rather than followed on government-built infrastructure. And so, in a way, to hear all these politicians eulogizing Steve Jobs, I'm not sure they really get the Steve Jobs story.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that people always act in their self-interest, and the biggest one seems to be money. And I realize right now that people think that that's a bad thing. We have these protesters out there that occupy Wall Street, and greed is a bad thing. Greed can be a good thing. It can be a motivator. Somebody can say, I want to improve my lot in life. Some people call that greed. I just call that inspirational and aspirational, and I think that's what leads to changes in technology. That what leads to advances and betterment of our lives, and it doesn't come from Washington or Austin.
Well, money is awesome. I think we all can agree that. But money is awesome when it's spent correctly. And one of the things that we've seen throughout this country in the last 200 years is that one of the pillars of American democracy was funding in research. I think we can all remember that the internet started out as a defense project, right? That's where it came from.
Yeah, but I'll go back to Thomas Edison. I don't remember Thomas Edison getting any government loans to conduct his research. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so you're talking modern history, and I'm going back further than that, I guess.
That's fine. But in the last 100 years, we've seen a steady decline in the amount of money that is being given to government research programs. And I think if you want to see government dollars put into something that'll have a multiplier effect, that's a great place to go. And I think it's a mistake to see the government move away from programs like that. Where, look at what NASA has done in terms of government funds.
But how do
to
we
research projects?
How do we explain Solyndra, a company that could not get its private investor money because it could not prove its worth to those investors? So they turn around, they make friends with somebody in government, they feather their nest with a politician, and they get what we now understand to be nearly $1 trillion in taxpayer-funded loans and loan guarantees. Now, all I think I'm saying is Apple succeeded, or the cellular industry succeeded, because they were able to prove their worth to consumers and investors. Solyndra couldn't prove that worth, so they went and got the money from the government. It's fine in theory to say we need government investment in research, but how do you guard against it becoming what we call crony capitalism?
Well, I think that you just have to have an informed public, and you have to take precautions to make sure that cronyism doesn't happen, which is what these protests, the Occupy protests, are about. They're about cronyism. They're about lobbyists taking over our government system. They're about 1% controlling 99% of the wealth. This whole
Not sure you'll ever get away from government know-it-alls picking winners and losers. I don't care which administration, which party, how much reform you do. As long as a Rick Perry can steer technology dollars or a Barack Obama can reward his campaign contributors, you're going to have this problem. And it isn't going to lead to greater and greater innovation. More often than not, it's going to lead to greater and greater waste.
I'm sorry, Steve, I want to agree with you. When you said it's okay to fail, that's the beauty of entrepreneurs taking a risk, and they're going to fail, they're going to succeed. And when you think of the government coming in, it's really to minimize failure and risk. And that takes the entrepreneurial spirit and innovation out of it.
So
I love when people like Steve Jobs go way out on the limb and I think some of the greatest creativity, comes from small individuals, small businesses, small organizations, and not these big companies that aren't going to take one step off to the right or left unless someone, is going to have a big safety net for them. So, I think we want a culture that nurtures the Steve Jobs. The greatness of our economy is come from these small entrepreneurs, not these huge companies that are, that their risk, there is no risk. Right? It's basically, there is no risk.
I agree with you.
But if, for instance, the government was not in the position to be giving out these dollars, then why would there be lobbyists up there asking for them? So in other words, you kind of create your own problem when you say government should direct the dollars. All the lobbyists are doing are standing up there and saying, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. If you took away the redistribution from the government and said, okay, the marketplace will decide where the money goes based on the merit of the projects, then you eliminate the lobbyist.
The only problem I see with that, Steve, is that when you have that system in place, then you get these too big to fail companies that steer the market. We were talking about small companies being the innovators, being the people that have the new technology. Well, a lot of times they get the money to start those new technologies from grants. There's a program at UTSA right now where students have to invent something. They have to take it through the patent process, create a new invention, and market it.
And that's a very small pocket of money typically, right?
Yeah, it's a very
small, very modest.
But if every university has that small pocket of money, that pocket grows and grows and grows. Now, they have to go through this whole program, and when they're done, they have a product. They are entrepreneurs. They get to start, and then they get in the business community, and the business community can foster that and bolster that. That's a phenomenal project, and it all starts through a government grant, through the Department of Education.
But why couldn't it start from a business grant?
Because businesses aren't doing it.
Oh,
But how did Steve Jobs happen? How did Apple happen?
Well, people say that it started in his garage, but it was actually through angel grants, kind of like how Facebook started. Not government grants.
He got
investors. Yeah,
but that's my point. I know he didn't print the money, but he got investors. You can't make the argument we wouldn't have this kind of innovation or we won't have enough of it unless we have government redistribution when a guy did it without government redistribution.
Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely. And you can point to Steve Jobs, but Steve Jobs is an outlier. That's why he was so successful. He thought outside the box and he did things different.
I think he's just a more exceptional version of something that happens in this country every day. I think there's people doing this every day. And again, I would point out that while he was doing it, he was working against, he was in contradiction to the government-protected monopolies that did not want a guy like him to succeed. In fact, first didn't even know about a guy like him, and then when they did not want him to succeed.
Right, because the government was set up to protect IBM.
Yeah, in the government's view, there should only have been IBM and typewriters.
I agree with you.
So I don't know how you argue that we somehow need this function of government picking winners and losers or government know-it-alls who ignore capitalist incentives. Why do we need that if people are succeeding without it?
Well, I don't like what you said, but what you said wasn't what I'm saying. I'm saying, because...
I'm confused. He said what?
Right, it's like Rick Perry in a debate.
Didn't you say we need the government to invest in research because otherwise big companies will steer the market?
I believe that to be true, and I believe big companies.
We all have IBM computers.
No, I believe big companies are more loath to take risks.
Sure.